Welcome to BYDFi. I'm Elisa, your guide for this Bitcoin course video series. Occasionally, we will be bringing you a brand new video, just like this one, where we break down basic Bitcoin concepts in an easy-to-understand way. This way, you can learn more about Bitcoin or even share these videos with friends or family who have questions. Today's topic is the journey of a Bitcoin transaction, from the moment you hit send until it's received by the other party. In this episode, we will take you step by step through the process, explaining exactly what happens from the second you press that send button in your wallet to when the Bitcoin lands in the recipient's wallet. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a clear understanding of how the Bitcoin network functions and the roles each participant plays in the ecosystem. Let's get started. The path from sending to receiving a Bitcoin involves three key stages: signing, broadcasting, and confirming. Let's start with the first step, signing. When you hit the send button in your Bitcoin wallet, what you're really doing is instructing your wallet to send a specific amount of Bitcoin to another user. Let's say, for example, you want to send 1 Bitcoin to your friend Steve. You input Steve's Bitcoin address, and your wallet creates a transaction message. This message contains information about you, the sender, Steve, the recipient, and the amount of Bitcoin being sent. Next, your wallet generates a unique digital signature for this transaction by mathematically combining the message with your private key. As we've discussed in a previous lesson, your private key is a long, complex string of letters and numbers that acts as the password to access your Bitcoin. Anyone with your private key can control your Bitcoin, so it must remain secret. A digital signature is a way to prove that you own the private key without actually revealing it. Instead, you use your public key, which can be shared freely. Each time you send a Bitcoin transaction, the digital signature created is unique, making it even more secure than a handwritten signature. For example, if you send 1 Bitcoin to Steve today and another tomorrow, each transaction will have its own unique digital signature. Once the transaction is signed, your wallet bundles this digital signature with the transaction message into a small file. And that completes the first step, signing the transaction. Now we move on to the second step, broadcasting. In this stage, your wallet broadcasts the signed transaction file to the Bitcoin network. It sends the file to other computers, known as nodes, which hold copies of the blockchain. When a node receives the transaction file, it checks that everything is in order. Specifically, the node verifies that you have enough Bitcoin to complete the transaction and that your digital signature is valid. This is similar to how a bank would check your account balance before processing a payment. Once the node has verified the transaction, it forwards the file to other nodes, which repeat the verification process. Every time a node receives the transaction, it stores the information in a holding space called the mempool. The mempool is a temporary storage area for valid but unconfirmed transactions. At this point, the transaction has been broadcast across the network, and we've completed the broadcasting stage. Now, let's take a quick break to understand the status of our transaction at this moment. You might be wondering how you can keep track of your transaction while it's traveling across the Bitcoin network. This is where a block explorer comes in. A block explorer is a tool, usually a website, that allows you to explore the blockchain. Using a block explorer, you can check the balance of Bitcoin addresses, track specific transactions, and gather various statistics about the network. At this stage, if you look up your transaction on a block explorer, you'll see it marked as unconfirmed. This means the transaction has been broadcasted to the network and verified by nodes, but it has not yet been added to the blockchain. Such transactions are often called zero confirmation transactions. It's important to remember that unconfirmed transactions are not final. They can still be cancelled, and there's no guarantee they will ever be included in the blockchain. If you run a business that accepts Bitcoin payments, you should never consider an unconfirmed transaction as proof of payment. Only confirmed transactions can be trusted. Let's move on to the final step, confirming the transaction. If you've watched our previous episode on Bitcoin mining, you already know that miners play a crucial role in this step. Miners are responsible for grouping together unconfirmed transactions from the mempool and adding them to a block. However, there's a limit to how many transactions can fit into each block, so miners prioritize transactions with the highest fees attached to them. This incentivizes them to pick transactions with higher fees over those with lower ones. Once miners have grouped a set of transactions into a block, they compete with one another to add the block to the blockchain. This competition involves solving complex mathematical problems, and the miner with the most computational power has the best odds of winning. When a miner successfully solves the problem, the block is added to the blockchain, and all the transactions within that block are considered confirmed. You can think of miners as the authors of Bitcoin's history. Each time they win the competition, they get to write the next page of Bitcoin's transaction history. On average, a new block of transactions is added to the blockchain every 10 minutes. Keep in mind that this is an average. Sometimes 2 blocks are added in quick succession, and other times it may take over an hour for a block to be confirmed. If your transaction is included in a block, you'll see on the Block Explorer that it now has 1 confirmation. As more blocks are added to the blockchain, the number of confirmations will increase. Picture this process like stacking building blocks. With each new block added on top of yours, your transaction becomes more secure and harder to reverse. That's why it's often recommended to wait for at least 6 confirmations before considering a transaction fully confirmed and irreversible. And that's it. Your transaction is now fully confirmed, and Bitcoin has been received. Hopefully, this lesson has given you a clearer understanding of how the Bitcoin network operates from the moment you send a transaction to when it's confirmed. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoy the content, please hit the like button and subscribe for updates on new episodes. Thank you for joining me on the Bitcoin courses of BYDFi. I'm Elisa, and I will see you.